Action!
Raging Review.
The Raging Cajuns will be a source of pride for this university, for the alumni, fans, and donors as we achieve success in the classroom, in the competitive arena, and in the community.
It's about to get really fun.
We're looking for dudes that will stand up. Well, Coach, let me tell you today, I'm here and I'm ready to stand up. And I challenge you, Raging Cajun Nation, to stand up with us. Stand up with us. Let's lock hand in hand and let's walk through the gates of Omaha.
Hey, I love y'all boys. Let's grind every day starting today. Let's do it. Y'all ready? Alert! Ready? Who's that team ready? Who's that team ready? That's up.
I got one thing to say right here. Cajuns win!
That is right. Cajuns win, baby. That's right. The Cajuns went into Wake Forest last week, took care of business against the Demon Deacons. Cajuns do win, and hopefully they're looking to win again this week against Southern Miss. We'll talk a lot about that tonight, as well as many more things going on around the Sun Belt Conference. We'll talk Cajuns volleyball and Cajun soccer, as well as a little bit of conference realignment. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Raging Review podcast. I'm Jerry, joined by Nick. Lane is out tonight, but we are doing something fairly new this time around. We decided, Nick and I talked about it, we are going to do a fan spotlight. We're going to start doing that in the near future, every once in a while, getting an avid listener of the pod to come join in and give us his or her thoughts on Raging Cajun sports, and basically have him in as an honorary co-host. Our first fan of the night to come join us is Mr. Terrell Lentini. As most of you know, if you're on Twitter or X, formerly known as Twitter, you'll see the Cajun Tuba. Well, this is him. His real name is, again, Mr. Terrell Lentini. He is a UL grad. He is a former member of the Pride of Acadiana marching band, and I guess it's all safe to say that he played the tuba in the band. Terrell, thanks for joining us. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. I'm happy to be with y'all. My little brother's in the background whooping up on Southern Miss on my PlayStation, so times are good right now.
Very nice. Let's hope it's a preview of what's really going on Saturday.
I'm hoping.
Nick, you ready for Saturday? You fired up, ready to end that 11-game win streak?
Yeah, I'm ready to go, man.
Or losing streak, should I say? Southern Miss's 11-game win streak.
Yeah, I'm tired of hearing. We've had to put up with Southern Miss for so long, and you know what's funny is you can't find a Southern Miss fan on social media right now. You can't find one, and I've been trying to talk shit to them for a week. And nothing. I mean, I even commented about their cheating in basketball and nobody said anything. So very unusual that we're at the point of Southern Miss athletics where they're just checked out. So, I go in cautiously optimistic this weekend, but we also did that last year, Jerry, and we were clearly the better team. Now, they don't have Frank Gore Jr. this year. So thank you to the man upstairs for that. But look, I'll just, again, be cautiously optimistic, hope for the best. And yeah, that's all I'm doing. Still excited about the win, of course, that just happened this past week. And I know we'll talk a little bit about that as well.
Well, the fans are there, Nick. The thing is that they're all telling us to put them out of their misery. I'm actually very surprised at the interaction. We tweeted out a few things this past week, and we, kind of trying to see, hey, we're saying things like, hey, what's up, Buzzards? It's game week, USM hate week. What's up, guys? And the only responses I've really gotten is, yeah, please beat us bad enough so we can make a coaching change, or we're not excited about this game. The streak will probably end. I actually got some comments where some of their fans are pretty much like, look, if you guys don't beat us this year, you might never beat us. So I guess as a fan, that gives me a little bit of confidence about Saturday. I've said before, I'm not really going to trash talk as much until we have more points than them and the clock strikes 0. But it really goes to show you where their fan base stands with their football program right now, because we know for basketball and baseball, they'll talk some trash. But in football, it seems like so early in the season, and they've pretty much already kind of given up.
They only talk trash in sports that they're good or decent in. They don't talk trash in any other sport. I mean, you don't hear anything about softball, women's basketball, nothing. Even when basketball is bad, you don't hear anything from them. But man, if they win a couple games, they're the best team in the country ever in the history of Everdom. It's crazy how that works.
We haven't really heard much of that about their football team, but we'll preview more of that later on in the episode. First, let's before we do that, let's close out or put a bow on top of that Wake Forest win. We'll do a quick review of that game. It's been a few days, and I know we're pretty much in the second half of the week going into Southern Miss, but I can't not mention that, look, in spite of Wake Forest maybe not being the best team in the ACC, and in spite of the fact that we really outplayed them, it's good to see that we were able to get a nice P4 win on the road, especially our first ever win against a school from the ACC. Coach Des had mentioned that he has a lot of respect for Coach Dave Clawson with Wake Forest. And look, Dave Clawson has done a good job at Wake Forest. And the fact that I felt like we not only outcoached them and outplayed them, but we just outclassed them. I mean, it was if the officiating didn't make these bogus calls that put them back in the game, the score could have been a lot worse than just 3 points.
Yeah, and it would have been much worse than 3 points. And I think we had some missed gap assignments. The interior of our defense kind of didn't play great. So that was a little concerning. But outside of that, I thought we really were toe to toe with them and were a lot better than them in a lot of key positions. So again, it doesn't matter if it's an ACC team that's struggling right now. It's all about one, perception, and two, proving to yourself that you can get that win. And I think we talked about it. That was one thing that Des has been missing, and we felt like he couldn't really get over that hump, was to get a win over a team that maybe we typically shouldn't get a win over. We thought that we had that versus Tulane. We thought Tulane was really good, and that could be his statement win. Didn't happen, but came, pretty darn close. If the ball bounces a couple ways our way, I think we win that game. But then you go to Wake Forest after the letdown and on the road against all of the stuff that you had to face, just pulled it out. So again, credit to Des and credit to the coaching staff and credit to the guys. Somebody mentioned it on the post game that the team never gave up. No matter what they threw at them, they kept punching back. And that's really what you want to see out of a team. And this team feels different. I think we said that the first couple of weeks. And even during the Tulane game, we said this team just feels different. And it really does. They believe that they should and will win every single game. So excited for what lies ahead, especially this weekend. If we do our work, then it should be ugly and I will be a happy boy.
Yeah, and last year you look at some of the losses we had. I mean, Georgia State, for example, we were much better than them and we played like crap and lost, on the last second play. Zion throws an interception in the end zone, but my mindset was you shouldn't have trailed 17-0 against that team, right? Then you look at Southern Miss last season. We left anywhere from 13 to 21 points off the board off of our own mistakes. You look at ODU. We can't play man coverage. All they did was beat us on go routes all night. And we still had a chance to tie it at the end with first and goal from the 7-yard line and couldn't score. And so you look at some of these losses last year, and let's not forget the Jacksonville State game in the New Orleans Bowl, right? We had a chance to beat them. They score a touchdown on fourth down from like the 15-yard line and beat us in overtime. I mean, those are the type of games that, Des has unfortunately lost. But it was nice to see us, like you said, get over that hump and get over that hump against an ACC school. We were losing these games. We were losing to teams that we were favored against, that we were better than. It's nice to see us go into Winston-Salem and beat a well-known, well-established brand or a team in Wake Forest. So I'm hoping that starts a trend and a pattern. Not only does it show that we're capable of being a really good football team, but it also shows that we can finish out the close games. And hopefully that builds confidence in the locker room going forward, starting with Southern Miss this weekend. Terrell, I want to ask you, looking at this game against this past week against Wake Forest, the fourth quarter, I mean, really, you look at some of these calls. I mean, the targeting, the penalties, the roughing the passer, as a fan watching this game, you had to have been screaming at the TV like the rest of us going, okay, what type of breaks can we get? And also, they're going to find a way to screw us. They're going to find a way, P4, school, ACC officiating, they're going to find a way to just, cause us to lose this game. What were your thoughts in that last minute or two after Kenny kicked the go-ahead field goal before they marched down the field and basically missed the field goal for us to win?
I was watching this game with Bryce this past Saturday, and yeah, we were screaming, and both of us were saying the same thing. I hope this game doesn't go into overtime, because we were the same mindset. If it did, we probably not winning this game. I think something that really hasn't been said is Dez finally got lucky. For so long, the luck has been going against us. You look at Billy. How many? I can think of 3 games off the top of my head where he was lucky with field goal kicks. Twice against ULM and once against South Al. All those wins just from missing the kicks, and that's not really gone Dez's way until this past weekend. And glad to see we finally pulled it out. Man, it was a stressful game for sure. I was thinking, we really had the chance to put it away early on that 4th down play in the first quarter. And I think if we get that first down, we get the touchdown, you go up 21-0. I think it's smooth sailing the rest of the way, kind of like how James Madison did with North Carolina. But we had to make it a tough game. There's no other way.
Yeah, anytime you're on the road, especially against a P4, they're going to stay in it. And there were a few times where we could have put the game away early. For example, we went for it on 4th and 6, and that's when Ben threw that pass to Robert. I'm drawing a blank. Robert, the receiver, number 15. He basically hit him on a man-to-man route, and it was right into his hands. And of course, he dropped it. But at the same time, if he converts that and we score, it's 21-3. And at that point, does Wake really make a comeback? I don't know. But there were opportunities on defense where we didn't quite make stops when we needed to. And we let them back in the game. Now, that scared me a little bit because at halftime, it's 21-17, and I'm thinking, oh, no, here we go. They have momentum. They scored before half. Can we hold on? And surprisingly, or not surprisingly, our offense, they didn't miss a beat in the second half. Usually it happened against Minnesota last year, guys. If you recall, we're up 17-14. Minnesota made some adjustments, and they kind of outcoached us in the second half and used that Big Ten offensive line to basically just trudge it down the field where we couldn't stop them. I didn't see that this time around. I thought the coaching staff made some good adjustments at halftime. The offense just kept their foot on the gas. And really, I felt a lot more comfortable when Zylan Perry returned that kickoff into Wake Forest territory, because I had a feeling I actually thought we were going to get the first down and run the clock out and kick a field goal. But, we still had to kick the field goal with about 50 seconds left, and defense had to step up. But the offense right now this is probably one of the better offensive performances or offensive momentum I've seen over the last 3 games that we've had. I can't remember, guys. I don't remember how much the offense has been clicking since. It's been a while.
Well, I don't think I was concerned about winning the game because of anything that we did. I was more concerned of the fact that we were in the 4th quarter down 4 defensive players. I think that was scary to me. And then also the officiating. I didn't know. You knew something was coming on that last drive, and guess what? It did, So it wasn't anything that the guys did that I was worried about that we would lose the game. I was just worried more about the situation that we were put in. Couple of players, they put themselves in that position. A couple of players were allowed to be put in that position. But in the end, ball don't lie. I think everybody has said that. And going back to your comments, Terrell, about Billy, look, and the luck that he had, well, he's not having so much luck at Florida. He's not getting those bounces over there. So
yeah, he must have sold his soul while he was over here, because it's not turning out well for him now.
No kidding. And one of the things that I'm thinking about too is I was watching before I got on here, watched a part of the Texas State Troy game. Texas State was playing Troy. They were up like 21-3 or something like that. And obviously Troy is having a down year. And their coach left to go to Tulane. I get that. But you look at the fact that they're 1-4 and not very good. and that Dez was able to at least coach us to 6-6 in his first season, 6-7 if you count the bowl game. I think we underappreciated the work that he had to do, and we knew it was a tough job. But I think when you look at Troy after losing Summerall and being in the position, I mean, they're not a good football team right now, and being in the position that they're in, like you go back and you like tonight was that moment that I was like, Dez had so much going against him. And I know people call us defenders when we say stuff like that. And you just don't want to argue against Dez. It's not that, it's honesty. Like I honestly see that. I go back and I realize he had a lot of crap to deal with. And we realize that, but until you see Summerall leave and not nearly leave the program under duress like Napier did and see what they're doing, that just, that tells me that he did a lot better job than we thought in his first season.
Well, Troy is what we thought ULM was going to be, and it's scary to think that we could have been just like that. So,
right.
I mean, overall, just the work he's done here is to keep us, in a manageable position, because the ship could have sailed. We could have just crashed and tanked. But, I mean, we've been chugging along, and it's paying off this year.
And, Terrell, it's funny you bring that up about Troy is what we thought ULM was going to be. I mean, I watched the first half of this game, and they're actually in the third quarter right now, and Texas State is currently up 31-10. Some of the mistakes that Troy was making, very unheard of for them, especially a team that's won the conference in the last 2 seasons and finished in the top 25. I compare their first half performance tonight to, if you ever seen the movie The Little Giants, when they're playing the Cowboys, and in the first half, like they just look downright awful. It's very similar. I mean, and I say that jokingly, but it just goes to show you, Nick, you talk about how, a coaching change, you have to make adjustments and you have to change a lot of things. Troy is a completely different team than what we saw just less than a year ago. I mean, they just look bad. And look, they lose tonight. They're 1-5, and they lost to ULM at home last week.
And Texas State's not world beaters either. They got embarrassed last weekend.
I mean, look,
exactly.
How do you look? They lost 13-9. How do you score 9 points against ULM? No disrespect to ULM, but you're at home. You're the defending Sun Belt champions, and all you could score is 9 points against ULM at home and lose. We knew that they had a lot to replace this year. Besides the coaching staff, they had a lot of players to replace. But looking back at what the situation we had 2 years ago, as opposed to what Troy has, I would gladly trade our 6-7 season 2 years ago to what Troy's dealing with right now.
Yeah. I mean, that's a multi-year rebuild that they're going through right now. Not a 2-year rebuild, because we only had, 2 years of 6-6. I don't know what lies ahead for Troy, but that's tough to watch.
So real quickly, closing out the Wake Forest game, one thing that really stood out to me, besides the celebrations and everything, was the fact that I love seeing the excitement of the team after the game on the field. Like, shout out to Haley Blitch for putting up that highlight video this week, and seeing from the field the reaction of the team and how excited they were, and seeing the locker room video, Dez getting into it, screaming, going crazy with the team. And, it looks like it's a really close-knit group of guys. I always love seeing whenever our team feels united. Seeing them celebrating on the field's one thing. Nick, you and I talked about how we freaked out whenever their kicker missed the field goal. Terrell, how did you react when that ball doinked off the upright and bounced down on the field? We saw Dr. Maggard do this ballerina jump and run
whole
across
foot off,
the field.
1 foot off. He got about 1 foot off the ground.
Good
job. Good job.
Hey, but Terrell, I want to hear your reaction as you're watching that ball sail up in the air.
Well, it's funny because we're watching and I'm so antsy, I'm anxious. I'm just staring as they're marching down the field, and I look over and Bryce is like, I'm like, come on, man. He's like, I just got the notification on my phone. I'm like, God dang it, dude. You spoiled it for me. I could have had it in real time, but you ruined it. But then even just watching it, knowing that he missed it and just seeing it doink off, I was like, oh, man, this is a godsend.
Yeah, it was great. And when he missed it and it doinked off the upright, I literally ran outside and I let out the loudest scream. It was more of a scream of relief than jubilation. I think the whole entire neighborhood heard me, but it was so exciting because again, it's one thing for Dez and his staff and his team and this team to kind of get off the hump of losing close games. It's another when you go on the road to an ACC school for the first time in your school history and pull off this win. I mean, Nick, we grew up with Cajun football teams playing teams like that, and we would lose by 40 points. We weren't even in the game, and we went over there and we hung 41 on them.
Dude, think about Washington State when we went over there and got 77-7 or something.
77-7.
And Southern Miss. We'll talk about them in a second. I see we actually have a Southern Miss fan in the comments tonight. Happy to address that question he has. But we'd go to all these, and not even big schools. We'd go to any school and just get absolutely hammered. Well, Don Allen was hammered by halftime, but the team was also hammered by halftime. So yeah, no, to answer to your point, even in years like in the bustle years when we were trying to get a little respectable, we were still getting blown out by power conference opponents. There was no such thing at the time, but we were. So yeah, it feels good to get that win. It's crazy that we've only won one ACC game in the entirety of our football program, but then again, we haven't played, I'm sure, a whole lot of ACC teams. Seems like when we do play like a Florida State, we catch them in the best year that they've ever had in the history of their program. But regardless, right. Yeah, it is good to get that monkey off your back, and always good to shut up. Those fans are I'd say shut up their fans. Their fans weren't really into this game, if we're being honest. But it is always good to shut up the media and those folks who say we don't belong. You know what? We can play football just like anybody else in the country.
I'm kind of curious to know, and I know it's a hypothetical, but I know Michigan State canceled on us. I'm kind of curious to see how we would have played against Michigan State.
I think Michigan State's a little bit better this year than we thought they'd be. So I'm really glad that we played against Wake Forest.
Yeah, and I mean, there's so many different intangibles that go into games like that. It's really hard to tell. But yes, I would be interested to see how that turned out, but I'm not giving my win back for it.
No, I totally agree. But it's like we've talked about last week, Nick. I like playing these sort of middle of the road P4 schools. I'll play in Illinois. I'll play a Missouri. I think we play Missouri either next year or the year after. Well, actually, they're on a roll right now, but usually when they're down, right, they're not a bad team to play. I wouldn't mind playing another Wake Forest or a Georgia Tech or someone in the sort of the middle of the road of these conferences, because first of all, you get a nice hefty paycheck. I mean, Wake paid us $800,000, and then you have a chance to win. Even the Minnesota game last year, they paid us good money and we were in the game.
Yeah, I think there are probably 20 or so teams in the country that year over year, they are just strong. Even when they're bad, they have the hosses to beat anybody in the country. And I mean, Florida State, look at them. I mean, if we play them this year instead of a couple years ago, we crush them. They're not good this year. So it's a combination of scheduling, like you said, middle of the road. But then again, it takes a little bit of luck because you don't know what they're going to look like year to year. And those teams, I mean, in the world of NIL, it can make or break you. I mean, they could get NIL athletes in and just have a fantastic signing class, and those guys just come in and make an immediate impact. Or then again, it could have a negative impact like you're seeing at Houston, right?
Yeah.
They have all this NIL from Fertitta, and that's not doing them a whole lot of good to lowest players. And you saw what he did last week. Zion Chris went in the game. All he did was fumble the ball and then throw an interception. So, it could work both ways, but and that's why I say you need a little bit of luck on your side, because even a middle of the road SEC, ACC, Big 10, Big 12 team can still in 1 year turn it around and just be unbeatable. It's really, you have to have a little bit of luck on your side.
Houston has, I believe, the lowest average scoring in the FBS as we speak. So it's kind of crazy. You talk about NIL, and I'm glad you brought that up because Coach Dave Clawson, after the game against us for Wake Forest, made a comment about how he has some defensive backs that came in that they signed, and basically they got them through NIL. Now, 3 of their defensive backs that played last year playing in the NFL. So they lost some key guys defensively, but the quote that stuck out to me was, we brought in these guys this year through NIL, and we really haven't been able to do much with them. They're not really ready. That's why Louisiana was able to throw all over us and all this other stuff that he said. And it makes me wonder, I know NIL is definitely, it gives you a recruiting advantage. But when a coach says something like that, it goes to show you that NIL is not always 100% effective, and
Well,
that, no matter what you pay them, it sometimes it doesn't work out.
Yeah, but I like I like what we're doing with our program and saying we're not going to pay you a bunch of upfront money unproven to come over here unless I'm sure there's a position in need or something that we need some position that we really need to focus on. I like that Des is taking the road of, okay, prove yourself, and then we will retain you through NIL. I think that's really the way to go. We don't need to build up a $30 million NIL collective, because we don't need to go, have a Barstool Sports guy try to pay $4 million for a quarterback every year. That's insane, and that's got to be stopped. There's got to be legislation put through that prevents stuff like this. But regardless, I like the way that we're doing it, because you're giving guys incentive to get paid rather than paying them to come. I mean, it's like the guys in the last year of their NFL contract. They can blow it, but they're still getting paid. It's the same with NIL. You can't limit how much you pay them based on how many yards they get per game. That's not how it works. That's not what NIL is supposed to be. So I think you'll see a lot of more teams in the next 5-10 years kind of go that route rather than the recruiting for NIL part. But then you always have the a-holes, like I said, Barstool Sports, that'll go out and just say, well, I have $4 million a year. I want to get the best player. Well, good luck. And then what happens if he tears his ACL 2 games into the season? Then you just wasted $4 million, right? And
you're starting to realize now that NIL's really kind of brought itself into the mix. Sometimes you take a chance on some of these players with the money you pay them, and they don't develop, or they don't fit the chemistry of the formula that they're trying to accomplish at the school that they go to. Take that quarterback at Florida State. What's his name? DJ Ogalua or whatever from Oregon State. He was this grandiose quarterback replacing Jordan Travis. Look at him. Hey, I mean, they could barely get in the end zone right now. I'm sure he didn't come in for the cheap.
Florida had one of the best recruiting classes ever last year. Look at what they're doing. TSAB, although they're doing pretty well this season, they're not the TSAB that they're used to down in Baton Rouge. And they're paying all these players a ton of money. So they're getting these great recruiting classes. But sometimes when you have a bunch of me guys on the team, that makes it a little difficult to coach and execute. So I didn't want to get way off subject. I know we got a lot to talk about. But anyway, I think that's where things are going with NIL is the crux of my my story.
No doubt. But that was an example that Coach Dave Clawson brought up, pertaining to our win against Wake Forest. He mentioned, the defensive backs aren't quite ready, and we got them through NIL. And it's like, well, if you don't develop them soon enough, that's you get Ben Woldridge having a career day and Lance Lejeune, looking like an NFL receiver. I mean, that's what happens. So I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad they didn't develop against us. I hope there's more teams out there that don't develop against us and we're able to have career days offensively on them. But anyway, so we're gonna close that out. Again, Louisiana victorious over the Wake Forest Demon Deacons, 41-38. First victory over an ACC school in school history. Louisiana's record now sits at 3-1 on the year, and they will look to start a little bit of a win streak this year, guys, in the conference opener in Hattiesburg. Oh, Southern Miss week. Cajuns travel to Hattiesburg to take on the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. Kickoff will be at 6 o'clock at MM Roberts Stadium. So moving on, let's preview Southern Miss. Southern Miss comes in with a 1-3 record. They had a bye last week, but the week before, man, that was total chaos with them. They went to Jacksonville State and they dropped their game to Jacksonville State by the score of 44-7. A lot of instability, a lot of inconsistencies, just a lot of issues with Southern Miss. And, Coach Will Hall, we actually looked at the depth chart. They're looking to play all 3 quarterbacks this week.
Are they really, or is that just a Will Hall thing trying to throw us off because they're not very good?
Let me tell you something. I've had the chance to speak with some of their fans. Marchant Kinney is a good friend of mine. Of course, he had his Anytime Anywhere podcast, former Southern Miss star. He was also in the Southern Miss Hall of Fame. And we were talking the other day, and he even said it, the whole 3 quarterback system, it's just the fact that they don't have an identity really. And so they're trying to they're trying to play these 3 guys, and it's just not clicking. So, like we said earlier, we were trying to kind of trash talk a little bit, create some, social media activity.
They haven't made this fun at all.
Their fans are just at the point where they're like, they know they just have this feeling you're going to end our win streak
But
against
you know what? You
please
suck
beat
as a
us.
fan for that. I'm just saying, because I get what you're saying, but like it's like the NFL fan that wishes that you tank the rest of the season to get the first round pick. I don't care. I want to win, and I want to win now. And even during the Baldwin years, every week when I knew we were going to get our ass kicked, I still went in thinking we were going to win every damn game. So all of you that are giving up on this team, I just want to say y'all suck. Like, get it together, man. Be a fan, because that's what we are supposed to be. We're supposed to be fanatical. We're not supposed to be, oh, well, we're losing, so we're not even going to cheer. I bet you if you beat us, we'll never hear the end of it. So act like you're going to beat us this week.
Well, let's take a look at some of Southern Miss's stats right now. They're currently sitting at 1-3.
Do we really want to?
Well, no, let's look at it because it kind of puts us into perspective of what we're dealing with. Right now, they're currently 1-3. They have 3 losses to Kentucky. They have a loss to South Florida at home, as well as Jacksonville State. Their 1 win comes against Southeastern Louisiana. Right now, they're scoring 16 points a game with a total of 66 points. They're actually getting outscored 134-66. Right now in rushing, they're averaging 82 rushing yards per game. They're averaging 223 passing yards per game, and their total offense, they're averaging 305 yards per game and giving up 415 yards per game. Offensively, they've scored 9 touchdowns through 4 games and have given up 18 touchdowns to their opponent. They're averaging right now 44 yards in penalties per game, which is actually not bad because their opponents are averaging 59 yards per game in penalties. Their time of possession actually has been really low. They're averaging right at 24 minutes per game in time of possession. Their third down conversions, 9 for 38, 23.6%. Their opponents are converting 46% of the time. Their fourth down conversions are 3 for 5, 60% as well. And their opponent is having a 60% effectiveness as well. They've had 7 fumbles. They've lost 6 of them. They've given up 9 sacks. And they've also turned the ball over, I think, 9 times so far. I'm sorry. What is it? 9 interceptions, maybe? I have to look that up. 7 interceptions. They've had 7 interceptions, totaling 13 turnovers through the first 4 games. So that's an average of about 3 turnovers a game right now. So they're turning the ball over, and it hasn't been going well for them offensively. That's kind of their big thing. Really, the problem is that I find with Southern Miss is ever since Frank Gore Jr. left, they really haven't had an identity. Now they have a good running back, and again, they have some decent quarterback play. The problem, when I say decent quarterback play, they have decent quarterbacks on paper, but they haven't been able to show it. For example, Tate Rodemaker they're supposed to be their starting quarterback. He was a transfer from Florida State. That was the quarterback that came in behind Jordan Travis when he got hurt at Florida State. And he's come into Southern Miss, and he really has not done much. Right now, he's 44 of 71. He's thrown 4 touchdowns, but he's also had 4 interceptions. Ethan Crawford, who is supposedly the dual threat quarterback, he's come in 7 for 14, 1 interceptions, no touchdowns. And then you got the freshman John White, who's pretty much the future, but he's 12 for 23 with 2 interceptions and no touchdowns. So their touchdown to interception ratio is 4-7. And so they like to throw interceptions. And I'll tell you that is a huge opportunity for our secondary, as well as they've been playing, to have some turnovers and see what they can do and force some turnovers. And really, they have a chance to put this game away if our offense does what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, what jumps out at me out of the stats that you read, they're scoring 16 points per game. We're scored in 37. I mean, they've only scored 9 touchdowns this season. We've scored 18. A big reason for that is a lot of those turnovers occur in the red zone. The red zone is like voodoo Shaw's for Southern Miss right now. They just cannot punch the ball in when they get into the red zone. I think Frank Gore Jr. covered up a lot of their line issues last year. I think when you have elite talent like Frank Gore Jr., he can take over a game, which is what he did against us. And without having the luxury of that elite speed and elite talent, I think that's going to be where it's very, very difficult for Southern Miss to get any push on either of those lines. I think we're going to dominate in the trenches on Saturday. I think the interior of our defensive line has still got to play better than it did against Wake. Otherwise, you're going to give up some big plays. And again, a lot of that was missed gap assignments. And I think we hopefully have covered that in practice this week. They want to throw the ball. They don't want to run the ball. So that gives me a little bit of hope in two things. One, that we shore up that interior line to stop the run because they don't really want to run the ball. And two, man, we got to get a sack. I mean, 4 games in. I mean, we're in game 5. We got to get a sack this season. I think I need shots for sacks. All right, let's do that. Let's make that a thing, Jerry. Let's do shots for sacks during the game. Hopefully, we're all drunk by the third quarter if that happens. But I think we really. I mean, pressure will be fine against Southern Miss. I thought we had to get a sack last week, and we didn't, and that still worked out for us because we did bring a little bit of pressure. But I still think when a team like this that wants to throw the ball, I think this is the week when you can dominate them on the line. You get that sack. You get that. I feel like once you get that first one out of the way, because right now it's mental, man. I mean, how many times do we have a guy in our grip and we just let him out of the tackle? So I think it's mental right now. I think once we get over that hump, like we're going to get over the Southern Miss hump, which is the title of tonight's show, I think once we get that first sack, I think it's going to be gravy from there. But I'm trying to find a way for Southern Miss to pull off the win this weekend because I would always think Southern Miss is going to be a competitive game. And even with the bad juju we have going back to not beating them since I was a freshman in high school, I just, on paper and on tape, I just don't see it. I just don't think that they're a very good team. Not to say that they don't have talent. I just think as a team right now, they're not very good.
Terrell, looking at these stats, like Nick said, scoring 16 points a game, giving up 34 points a game, only scoring 9 touchdowns. There has to be a way for them to really come through and have a breakout scenario. I personally, I don't see it happening against us, maybe down the line. When you look at the quarterback situation, you look at the depth chart where there's 3 quarterbacks that have a chance to either start or play. That not only does that create instability, but there has to be a lack of confidence in the quarterback room or maybe somewhere in the locker room. What is, like, in your opinion, do you feel like there's instability in the locker room right now just based on the fact that they can't find a starting quarterback? They've just shown a lot of inconsistencies. Do you think coming off the bye week that'll help them, or do you think it's going to make much of a difference going into Saturday?
I think it won't make a difference. I mean, you look at the teams that Southern Miss has played, Kentucky, I don't count Southeastern, but Kentucky, South Florida, and Jacksonville State. None of those are good teams, and they got blown out by all 3 of them. I mean, South Carolina beat Kentucky pretty good. Tulane handled South Florida, and you saw what Coastal did to Jacksonville State. So if Southern Miss is playing like that against teams that really aren't that good, I mean, how can you have any faith in your head coach to really lead you to and trust in him to think that he's going to do good by you? I mean, I'm sure they'll get up and they may try to make this competitive, but I mean, I think us not really performing that great on defense. We played some very good offenses this year, and I mean, Southern Miss is a really bad offense. I think this is the game that our defense really finally shows out.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, if there's really any game for our interior D-line or our front 7 to really get things going, especially with the beginning of conference play, it's this game. Because moving forward, next week you play App, who, I mean, their identity offensively is a run-balanced attack, kind of like we have. And then the next 2 weeks is back-to-back against Coastal and Texas State. You got to get that front 7 going. You got to get them going, especially now since it's the beginning of conference play. You're going to need that because, we know Southern Miss can't score, but after this, the next 3 teams, they can score points. So you got to get them going. And if there's, that's kind of what I like about this game is that there are going to be opportunities for parts of our team to be able to kind of get the juice flowing, going into conference play. And that's one thing I'm going to be on the lookout for, is seeing what our front 7 can do against their run game. And like you said, Nick, our front 7, if they can get to the quarterback, because if they can't get to the quarterback against Southern Miss, I don't know how they're going to be able to do that moving forward against teams that have more high-powered offenses than the Golden Eagles do.
Yeah, and are we going to stay in a 4-man front when we try to rush? Are we going to go to a 5-man front? Are we blitzing? I want to see. I want to see what we do this weekend as well. Another thing I want to see offensively is I think Tim Leger mentioned something about Lejeune and the fact that we saw him play a little bit of a different role last week where he was in multiple different sets and doing some things and had a lot of movement at the line. Even when they weren't targeting him, they had to account for Lejeune and where he was going. He kind of hinted at the fact that we're going to see more kinks in the game plan with Lejeune. And my hope is that we do some things this week that put that on tape to make other defenses worry. Because again, I know we compare him with Taysom Hill because he could be our Taysom Hill, but we've not seen him under center yet, I don't think, this season. So we might see that against Southern Miss. I would love in conference play to start putting that on tape because, again, that's just somebody else that another opposing defense has to account for literally every time he's on the field. I want to see more out of Lance this weekend. And I really do think, like I said, Coach Leger alluded to that. We're going to see more of it. I want to see more of that this weekend leading up to the rest of conference play.
And also, too, against their defense hasn't really shown that they can stop many teams. I mean, you want to break their spirit, add another weapon to our offense to expose them. I mean, that's one thing that we learned against Wake Forest is you just added more weaponry in Lance Lejeune. I mean, Lance Lejeune, Jacob Bernard, Harvey Broussard, Tavion Smith, Robert Williams. I mean, you've got, and let's not forget Caden Jensen, Terrence.
By the way, we're not even talking
Terrence
about
Carter.
We're not even talking about the running backs at this point. That we're
right.
3 deep.
I mean, this is the passing game,
Yeah.
and so you add that plus, like you said, you've got Trey Washington, you've got Bill Davis, you've got Zylan Perry. I mean, the weaponry of what we have offensively. I mean, it's lethal, and it's great because everybody's playing a part. You know, seeing Tavion Smith score that touchdown against Wake Forest and seeing Harvey Broussard do his thing. Jacob Bernard's Jacob Bernard. I mean, he does, he's always going to do something special for us. Again, Robert Williams, he's gotten a lot of presence. I mean, the more weaponry you add on offense, the more dangerous you become to where, like you said, Nick, how does a defensive coach prepare for that? What type of scheme do you have to do when your passing game is clicking? Your run game, you got 3 running backs you have to try to stop. I mean, I look at it as, look, I know we like using Lance Lejeune last week, and I hope we use him more this week. I wouldn't mind if another receiver comes out of out of nowhere and shines, because that's more weaponry that teams are going to have to prepare for. So I'm with you.
Right.
Use them.
And I think if to answer your question about how do you defend that, I think the answer is you bring pressure and you hope it's the right play to bring pressure on, because we've seen that Wooldridge under pressure, he can get a little bit shaky. He can get the happy feet. He can turn the ball over. So I would expect, I don't know if we're going to see it this week. Well, we're probably going to see a little bit more of it this week. Them trying to bring pressure against it and try to offset the passing game in that regard, because they just want to try to get to Ben. And I think they're going to, in that case, I mean, as long as our line can hold up, which I think they can do against Southern Miss, we'll be fine. But going through the rest of the season, our offensive line is really going to have to perform, because we've seen a couple of times some missed coverage, some misassignments on the offensive line that have let a linebacker come in free to Ben. And then bad things happened a couple of times. There was intentional grounding on one drive. He turned the ball over for a pick 6. So I think that's the way you balance out that attack. But then again, if our offensive line performs as good as we know they can, then you really, really make it difficult for that defense to do anything against you.
Tyrell, Nick and I were talking about how we have so much weaponry on offense. Against Southern Miss, I guess the way I look at it is you look at Southern Miss's defense, and they kind of run a multiple package. They kind of do mix and match. They do certain disguises. In your opinion, do you feel like is there anything we need to focus on offensively, or do we just kind of mix and match the run and the pass? I feel like the more we mix and match the run and the pass, our offense is more effective. One of my biggest complaints against Tulane was that I thought the unbalance of running the ball more actually hurt us. Last week, I thought we had a good a good mix. And I thought that was very effective. And look, Dez's play calling was great last week because of the fact that we were able to do both. This week, I kind of find it's a little bit different because, again, Southern Miss's defense isn't quite up to par with what Wake Forest and Tulane is. But do you feel like we need to focus more, like we talked about with the front seven defense trying to improve going into conference? Do you feel like there's anything offensively we need to do differently, or would you rather stick with the balance attack against the Southern Miss defense?
I mean, I think the only thing that would make it better would just be to really wear down the defense and just pound on the ground. I mean, we've played 4 games and we've only punted like 3 times. Is that right? I mean, our offense is doing what it needs to do. I think there's not really much improving that it needs to do. There's key situations that, that we could improve in, make maybe a crucial 4th down conversions. I mean, that's part of the game. But overall, I think the offense is just rolling. I think the only thing that could probably make it better is just being a little bit unpredictable. I mean, we've compared Lance to Taysom Hill. I mean, the first 2 games, the Saints had Taysom Hill and won handily. In the next 2, he was limited, and you see what's happened. So, I mean, it's important, I think, to be unpredictable, to have that extra weapon. But I mean, so far it's not really been an issue.
Jerry, I'm going to put it in our terms, in our line of work. Diversify. We need to diversify offensively. Just diversify your portfolio, and you'll be fine. I think that's a key to the game this week.
Well, look, and the thing is, the beauty is we have options. I feel like we have options against this defense because they really have shown us they can't stop anybody. At the same time, I think this could be an opportunity for us to stick with the balance attack because of the fact that I want to see consistency. That's the main thing. You're going to need consistency, not just this game, but in conference play in general. But I figured this would be a good opportunity to see what we can do and not necessarily experiment, but I feel like we just kind of stick with our identity. Our identity offensively, when it's most effective, is you run the ball first, you establish the run, and you set up for the pass. And I think that's one thing that Ben, like I've always said, Ben is a West Coast pocket passer who has decent feet and can run when need be, but he's also somebody that when you let him manage the game rather than trying to make him throw the ball 50 times, he's the most effective. And that's what I find that he did last weekend. He was really a good game manager rather than just throwing the ball 80 times and trying to have a high completion percentage. I mean, the more we let him manage, the more effective he is, and everything else just kind of revolves around that in effectiveness, from the run game to the receiving, to the receivers, to the tight ends, the blocking. And so, I mean, if they can do that this week, it could be another great day at the office for the offense. I think we can score on this team for sure.
And I was thinking before we got on tonight, how could we lose this game? Because no matter what it looks like on paper, we still haven't beaten these guys since '93. So I still expect them to come out at home ready to play. I think we need to set the tone early. I think we need to take control early. If you put any hope into their hearts that they could possibly keep up with us, then it's going to be a long night. Now, do I think they can do that for 4 quarters? I don't think so. I mean, I really just don't think that Southern Miss, based on their history, can outscore us. But again, just put the game out of reach as early as you can, and put that doubt in them. Don't give them hope, and I think we'll be fine. But if you give a team hope that has nothing to lose, we saw what happened last year, right? So
yeah, the common denominator of the last 2 years is we've turned the ball over.
And Frank Gore Jr.
And Frank Gore Jr. I mean, 2 years ago, we start the game off with an interception, and what do? We give them the ball right back, and they score on us. And then we let them jump to a 28-7 lead. And really, we were still in it in the 4th quarter. I remember at the beginning of the second half, we get the ball. I think we're down 2 scores. We kept it close at halftime, and we're moving the ball down the field. I think we're on their 35-yard line, about to be down 1 score. Chris Smith fumbles, gives them the ball back, and I think they score right after that. And then we still had it at a 1-possession game with about a minute to go. Ben throws a pick 6, and the game's over. Let's rewind to last year. You get inside the 5-yard line twice. You come out with no points. Then you sack their quarterback, you scoop it up, you run it to the 1, should have been a scoop and score. The ball gets stripped at the 1 yard line, they recover. So let's say you kick the field goal both times inside the 5. That's 6 points, right? Then you hold on to the scoop and score at 7, or you could have scored all 3 times. I mean, we left off anywhere from 13 to 21 points last year in spite of Frank Gore. And we still went to overtime and could have won the game. So my point is offensively, just don't turn the ball over. Even if you have to punt, but don't give them possession. And like you said, Nick, don't give them momentum and confidence and have them believe, hey, you know what? We're going to give the Cajuns a game. I don't think we lose this game. I think if we have less than 2 turnovers, let's say even we give up a fumble or we give up an interception. I think anything less than 2 turnovers, we win the game. Now, if we start turning the ball over 3 or 4 times, then I'm going to start to worry, because that's how we've seen Southern Miss capitalize on us in the last 2 years. But offensively, no, just don't turn the ball over. Don't turn the ball over. You do that, I think we'll be fine. Even if we have to punt a few times, I think we'll be okay.
Cloverleaf had a question in the chat. Notice Cloverleaf didn't talk any trash, asked a simple question, which I appreciate. Is Coach Dez officially in the hot seat if he doesn't win on Saturday and finishes no higher than 3rd in the West this season? You know, originally before the season started, and I don't know if that's a serious question or not, but I'm going to take it. Before the season started, I told you, Jerry, we needed to win 8 games. Like 7's not enough. We need to win 8. I think the fact that he beat Wake Forest on the road this season, I think if we go 6-6, he still holds on to his job. I really do. I think if we would have lost against Tulane and Wake Forest and we're talking about 6-6, I think that's different. But I think as long as I don't see that happening. I mean, again, unless there is a cataclysmic collapse this weekend, I don't see us losing this game.
No, and I think also too, I mean, like you said, we're 3-1 right now. So and I think beating Wake Forest gives us confidence. You win this game, you're 4-1. At that point, you would have to go 2-5 to close out the year. And I'm looking down at the schedule. I mean, look, we've got some tough competition, but I don't see rise of right now, knock on wood, barring any injuries or any craziness that happens, unless we may have a total epic collapse. I don't see us losing 5 games to the teams remaining on our schedule. I mean, it would have to be a massive collapse.
Yeah, and that's assuming that we would lose this Saturday, which I don't see happening. Right. So if we win, we're at 4 games. I think we comfortably get to 7.
Yes.
To answer Nick Deal's question, how do we lose this game? They're an FBS game, man. I mean, we could have lost to Kennesaw State had we not paid them any respect. We saw UTSA struggle with them early. So we're on here very confident because of what is on paper and what we've seen, but you can't take any FBS conference opponent lightly. I mean, we saw that with ODU last season. I mean, we should have beaten ODU. There's no reason we couldn't beat ODU, and we went over there and lost to them. And we could look at several games over the course of the last couple seasons that we walked in thinking we would win and we didn't. So I don't think we're in a position yet to say that we're absolutely going to win, but I'm pretty doggone confident, and as most of their fans are as well, that we'll go in there and win. But again, it's an FBS team at home. If you don't respect your opponent, some funny stuff can happen. So,
I mean, CDS is real. All right. I mean, look, there's a little bit of CDS right now as we speak, playing a Southern Miss team that we're 2 touchdowns favored against at their house. Right. And part of that is because, first of all, they have an 11-game win streak on us. The last 2 years we were favored against them and they still found ways to beat us. And lastly, we're just Cajun fans. We're used to disappointment at times, right? When it's least expected. But, like you said, Nick, on paper, we should be able to easily win this game, barring any collapse or crazy mistake. I don't think personally that Wake Forest, that Southern Miss is going to come in and just beat us head to head with with us not turning the ball over just because they outplay us. I have a hard time believing that. I think, as Tony Robichaux always would say, it's about us. We have to control, we talk about results, but it's about us, what we do. We would have to just play like total crap and just suck to lose this game if we were not to turn the ball over and not make mistakes. I would just think Southern Miss would have to totally outplay us. And as of right now, I don't see how they can. I don't.
Yeah, and especially after last week, what we saw Wake Forest with the way that our guys responded to adversity, it's going to be really, really tough for Southern Miss to really. I mean, even if they get some momentum, I still think it's going to be really, really tough for them to get an edge on us. So, no, I appreciate the question, and he was actually answering his own question. He's nervous about the game, right? And we all are. We have CDS, and we know how that goes. But I think over the last couple of weeks, even after Tulane, seeing how Tulane performed last week, it gives you a little bit of confidence about how the rest of the season can go. So fingers crossed we pull it out in Hattiesburg and nobody gets food poisoning by eating at Wards, because that's terrible. Their root beer's terrible. The excuse for chili dog is terrible.
I mean,
I
they
don't know
could
why
go.
people there. They don't
They
even
could-
have an Applebee's.
They could go to an
They don't even-
Applebee's, but
they
I mean,
don't
there's.
even have an
I was going to
Applebee's.
say they could go to Applebee's, but unfortunately, there is none over
Terrible.
there. Terrell, I got to ask you, man. I mean, we talk about CDS all the time. I mean, it is a real thing. I want to kind of hear your confidence in this game. I mean, I know you mentioned as well. You look at their losses, and I mean, there's some bad losses. I mean, let's be real. They've lost to some teams convincingly, really to teams that are not. I mean, they lost to an 0-3 Jacksonville State team by 37. USF is not bad, but they're not that great, getting spanked by Tulane. They lost at home by 28. Kentucky is okay, but they got shut out, and it was 31-0 to, I think it was like not even midway
It would
through
have
the
been
fourth quarter.
77-0.
It would have been worse. So, I mean, for you, confidence-wise, to a team that we've lost 11 straight to, do you feel like, we're in good shape going into Saturday?
I'm going to mirror something said earlier, cautiously optimistic. I'm not going to say a win until the clock hits 0 on Saturday. I've only been a fan since 2017 when I started attending, and there's been enough happen since then to where I'm like, no, I'm not going to say it's over till it's over. I've seen the Texas A&M game. I've seen the Minnesota game last year. I've seen games that we absolutely should have won, but we just gave away. And I mean, this is another one. Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that we'll win, but then there's still that little glimmer. It's like, but maybe,
I mean, it's like Nick said, it's an FBS game. You got to strap up and put your helmet on tight and play. I mean, you can't just show up and expect to win.
And by the way, I just have to throw this out there. I hate to admit this, but the reason I know so much about Wards is because, one, I have almost a photographic memory, and I remember my childhood, and we actually had a Wards restaurant in Scott in my hometown. Back where the Dairy Queen ended up moving into that building, but Wards was built in Scott, Louisiana, I want to say in 87, 88, something around that time frame. And my mom, in fact, my mom and I were talking about it today. Her favorite thing to do, she doesn't even remember, her favorite thing to do was to go to Wards and have the root beer in the frosted mugs. All right, so I guess the root beer was all right. I'm just saying. I guess that was okay. Everything else is terrible.
So, guys, 3 keys to victory. What do the Cajuns have to do to get a win at Southern Miss and in this 11-game losing streak to the Golden Eagles? Terrell, I'll start with you.
Oh, you put me on the spot. I think first and foremost, don't turn the ball over. I mean, we've done very good at that. I mean, we haven't fumbled at all this year. I mean, we have, but we kicked it out of bounds. But we've only thrown 3 picks this year. I think we're excellent on not turning over the ball. And I think conversely, we need to create turnovers. As a second point, I mean, that's what has beaten Southern Miss. I think we need to capitalize on that. And I think thirdly, I think we need to step on their necks whenever we get ahead. We could have very easily put the game away against Wake Forest and just dominated them, but we faltered on that 4th down play in the first quarter. I think if we have the opportunity, we got to put them away early and just not even put this game in question. Just dominate them from the jump, and I think we'll be all right.
Nick?
So I think those were all really good. You stole one of mine, so I'll have to come up with another one. One, do your thing on offense. I mean, we know offensively we've got the tools and the guys and the hosses to make things happen. So do your thing on offense. Take control of the game early. Like I said, put some doubt in their mind. Don't give them any momentum. Don't give them any hope. Take control of the game early. Like you said, step on their throats. when it's time to do that. Let's take care of that early and move on to the next game, and then respect your opponent. Again, no matter how badly they're playing, we haven't beaten them since '93, and ULM has come in to Cajun Field in years that they were absolutely horrid and pulled out a win. So we need to respect our opponent and go in there like we're playing the biggest game that we've played this season. We do those three things, I think we come out with a big win.
Yeah, my 3 points, and I'm glad you brought that up, Terrell, about the turnovers. I mean, like I mentioned, our last 2 losses to them have been because we've committed careless turnovers. I mean, I was going to use that as one of mine, but you said it, so I'll come up with a new one. But I think also, too, put pressure on their quarterback. They've got 3 quarterbacks on their depth chart, and we don't even know which one is starting. So that's instability with their offense. And, if you make the quarterback uncomfortable, your entire offense collapses. So I think put some pressure on the quarterback. Like you said, Nick, get some sacks, get a sack on him and make him run, make him scramble, make him, throw on his tippy toes. I don't care, but put pressure on their quarterback, whoever it is. The second thing I want to say is don't worry about who, like you said, about respect the opponent, but don't worry about history. Just play the way you play. I think that's a huge part in that. Yes, they have an 11-game win streak on us, but we're a good football team. There's a reason why we're 14 or 15 or 16-point favorite going to their house. I mean, if I would have told 1999 Jerry that, hey, we're a 16-point favorite going to Southern Miss, my jaw would have dropped, because back in the day, Southern Miss was the original Boise State. I mean, they were the team of the G5, or wasn't called G5 at the time, but they were the ones beating Alabama, beating Florida State. Well, times have changed. I mean, this is our chance now. This is our time now, and we need to definitely make a point on that on Saturday. Last but not least, I would also say, I think defensively, like I want to see, actually the key, a main key to victory is, I know they're not running the ball well, but I want to see us dominate them at the line of scrimmage. Dominate them at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And, because to Terrell's point about how we can end the game early and impose our will, that starts at the line of scrimmage. I want to see our offensive line play consistent. I want to see our offensive line run block and run up the field on screens and whatnot. I want to see our defensive line dominate their O-line and get to their running back and get to their quarterback behind the line of scrimmage. And I want to see us win and impose our will after the last 2 games where we've struggled defensively at the line of scrimmage. I want to see us win this time at the line of scrimmage. And with the way the inconsistency of the Southern Miss offense has been, I think that can really set the tone if we win at the line of scrimmage early in the game. Like in the first drive, I want them punting on 4th and 15 because they can't get yards. If you do that early, that's how you definitely come out with this win against the Southern Miss Golden Eagles, hopefully for the first time since 1993.
I'm going to disagree with you on something. I want the team to know we haven't beat them since 93. And I get what you're saying. Don't let history.
Well, you don't want it to come.
Head.
You don't want it to scare you.
But I want them to know. But I want them to know how long we've waited for this night. And I think Des is going to say it. I really do. He's going to say we waited since 1993 for this night. We've put it off long enough. Let's get that dub tonight, and I think we do it.
And I think that's the beauty of them being in our conference now, because now we get a shot to do it every year. So, no, look, I'm excited about this game. I enjoy playing Southern Miss and everything. It's great to have them in our conference. I've always said it. It's a natural rival of ours. And look, if you want to exercise the demons in this losing streak, I mean, Saturday is a golden opportunity for us. We just can't make careless errors and start making goofy mistakes that can cost us. Don't give them any opportunity to capitalize.
Let's get over that hump, Jerry. Let's
get over the hump, baby, and shut that off early. Like you said, Terrell, shut it off early. And I think, look, I'll be honest with you. If we get up by 2 scores, I don't know if Southern Miss has the team to really come back. I don't think they're built for that. Yeah. So they need to control the clock, and they're just not very good at doing that. So they're averaging 24 minutes. I mean, exactly. They really have struggled in time of possession. And look, I mean, here's another thing too. We score quickly as well. I mean, our offense can score pretty fast. If we keep giving them the ball back and still win time of possession, this could be an ugly game. So
speaking of ugly games, the game he finished playing the game and won 105-0. I think he said we had like 18 sacks, so definitely prophetic for this upcoming Saturday.
I thought you were about to tell us that's the Troy Texas State score. That's what it's looking like right now. They're not doing very well either.
By the way, guys, based on the 4 ejections the other day in our secondary and our defense, Casey Osai and Ty Lewis. Now they were ejected in the first half. I do believe they'll be able to play the full game, which is huge. I mean, Ty Lewis and Casey Osai are two main guys on our defense, huge anchors on our defense. So that's going to be big that they can play since the opening kickoff. Calliope Edwards and Justin Agu, they'll be out in the first half, but hopefully the depth can complement those guys, and we can have the next man up step up. But they will be back in the second half.
Jerry,
but
did you hear if we had the tape reviewed by the Sun Belt to overturn any of those calls?
Here's the problem with that, and Dez alluded to this earlier in the week. Basically, the Sun Belt has a guy that handles that for the conference. Unfortunately, because it's the ACC, I believe we can consult with the Sun Belt about it. They'll give us some feedback, but I want to say, really, unfortunately, I think we can send it to the ACC, but they're not gonna do anything about it.
It's like you said earlier, Nick. If we can't win with 2 defensive starters going, then we got issues.
Agreed. Yeah. For one half, by the way, not for the whole game.
Right, that's true. But I'm not gonna lie. As much as I like Calliope Edwards and Kyleb Edwards and Justin Agu, I'm really, really happy that Casey Osai and Ty Lewis can play the full game. That's going to be huge.
I agree.
So anyway, again, Cajuns will travel to Hattiesburg. Conference opener against the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. Kickoff will be at 6 o'clock at MM Roberts Stadium, a.k.a. The Rock. Kickoff, the game will be on ESPN+. You can listen on 103.3 The GOAT. 1420 a.m. as well as Hot 107.9. Be sure to listen to Jay Walker doing the play-by-play along with Cody Juno, and Dawson Iserlo will be on the field for the sideline reports as well as his interviews with Coach Dez at the half and at the end of the game. So it's going to be a fun football game. Like I said, I'm always excited to play Southern Miss. I mean, this is why they came to the conference, but should be a good one. And before the episode ends, we'll come back with our predictions for our game against the Golden Eagles. But moving on real quickly to the Sun Belt. So we actually had some good football last week. Just kind of wanted to review some of the scores, kind of talk a little bit about what's going on around conference play. So let's start with JMU. JMU had a huge, nice, comforting victory over MAC opponent at home against Ball State. The Dukes were victorious over Ball State by the score of 63-7. That is the second week in a row that JMU has scored 60 plus. So their offense, you want to talk about an offense clicking, they're on fire right now. Also to Texas State, who is currently playing right now. We'll talk about that in a second. But Texas State last week played a neutral site game at NRG Stadium in Houston against CUSA's Sam Houston State. They were up 22-0 in the first quarter and found a way to still lose in the last second field goal to the Bearcats. Sam Houston State gets the best of Texas State by the score of 40-39. Of course, because of the effects of Hurricane Helene, the Appalachian State and Liberty game was canceled. And of course, our thoughts and prayers are still with the people of Boone, as well as the northwestern part of North Carolina. Georgia Southern and Georgia State. Georgia Southern traveled to Atlanta to take on their arch rival Georgia State. The Eagles came out with a nice, solid win against the Georgia State Panthers by the score of 38-21. Marshall hosted Western Michigan out of the MAC, the Thundering Herd. Good win for the Sun Belt against the MAC. Marshall victorious over Western Michigan by the score of 27-20. ODU traveled to Bowling Green, another Sun Belt versus MAC game. ODU gets a last-second touchdown, or I think they scored with like 9 seconds left to defeat the Bowling Green Falcons on the road. Old Dominion victorious by the score of 30-27 over Bowling Green. ULM, hey man, don't look now, but ULM 3-1 on the season. Coach Vincent has got this team rolling, and you know I have to say, and I'll give the score. They were able to go to Troy and take care of the defending champions of the Sun Belt, the Troy Trojans. Huge win, one of their bigger wins in a long time for the Warhawks. ULM victorious over Troy on the road by the score of 13-9. The TSAT Tigers took care of business. Actually, it was actually more of a blowout than I expected against South Alabama and Baton Rouge. The Tigers were victorious over the Jaguars by the score of 42-10. Of course, Louisiana victorious 41-38 over Wake Forest. But I got to say, the victory for ULM, I was able to listen to Coach Vincent's, or Bryant Vincent, the new head coach at ULM. I was able to listen to his his press conference this week. And of course, they're hosting JMU. And one thing that I got to give credit to him for is he's really trying to ramp up fan support at ULM. Like he talks about how in all of his interviews, we're playing for the school, we're playing for Monroe, we're playing for North Louisiana, we're playing for our city, our community. We need everybody out there. He kind of has sort of a Mark Hudspeth vibe to him. He brings some energy. And when they hired him, guys, I kind of knew that about him. Like I was a little familiar with him when he was at UAB. And I think that's, look, Terry Bowden had success as a head coach, but I think ULM kind of needed that younger, up and coming coach that brings that type of energy to really get the community support behind them. I think one thing he's done is he's really tried to get the city of Monroe behind this team, to show up to Malone Stadium, because look, their attendance has been atrocious over the last few years. I mean, it's bad. Even if they look right now, they're averaging like 11 or 12,000 fans. Even if they get it to like 18 or 19,000, that is a huge improvement for them. And so I just got to say, look, again, he has them at 3-1. He's got a golden opportunity this weekend as JMU comes to town to Monroe. But it's good to see. It's good to see him try to bring some energy to that football program, because like I've always said, look, I don't like ULM, but a successful ULM is great for the Sun Belt Conference.
Yeah, and the Bowden hire was so freaking weird. It was like hiring Steve Spurrier out of retirement to come coach for you.
It's a name.
Why would you do it? It's a name, but it's the same old. Like you're not getting what you need out of the community. And like you said, like HUD did for us. We needed somebody to come in and light a fire up the butts of fans. And he got on I think local radio. Was it him that made those comments about student fees? And maybe that's something that we can address with the Louisiana legislature again, because let's not forget, it was pro-TSAB legislators that put forth the bill that said you cannot charge student fees. They wrote it into law because you had a school that was self-sufficient in athletics. And God forbid anybody challenges that in the state of Louisiana. We have to protect the almighty flagship. So let's hold everybody else down. I think it's past time that we get past that stuff. And look, I'm not saying charge $500 a semester for athletics, but I think there has to be a way, especially in the world of NIL and where college football is going. I think there needs to be a review and just common sense approach to allowing schools to charge a fee. I mean, you look at James Madison, yeah, they have a huge budget. You know why? How much do they charge their students per year? Liberty, imagine that. Liberty has 100,000 students that take a correspondence course and call it a diploma. You charge them $500 a semester, and guess what? You have unlimited funds. And that puts schools like us in Louisiana at a severe disadvantage. So it's really something that I'm hoping our local legislators get together on, especially maybe even the ones in Lafayette that work towards getting approval for funding for our stadium, and get together with the guys in North Louisiana and come to some sort of pact that will get this through, because it's past time that we stop this backwards ass thinking in Louisiana that only one school can be successful in athletics. That's just stupid, and it's not doing anything but hurting the entire state and the schools that we're supposed to all be supporting. So hopefully that I'm glad that he brought it to the forefront again and said it out loud and said it publicly, because even Tim Brando's out there saying the same thing. Like, we need to make this a thing again. So hopefully that moves the mountain, but we'll see if that has any effect on it. I don't think it will, but maybe Blake Miguez is listening, hopefully, because I know he's a listener of Rage and Review, and he can make some things happen in the legislature this year.
It's crazy because I and correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, you may know this more than me, and I can actually ask people that have dealt with this. So for student athletic fees, can it be done by a student vote? Like,
it can be done by a vote, right?
Okay, but they don't. It's not mandated.
Who's gonna vote to charge
increase
a fee?
Tuition, right?
And again, I think if you put limits surrounding it, like it can only increase by a certain percentage every year or whatever, I think you put some guardrails around it so that we aren't going crazy with it. But look, students will very rarely vote to increase their tuition, right? And so unfortunately, the way to go is to not limit the university to increase it by $10 a semester, $12, $15 a semester. Or per credit hour. I don't think anybody's going to be screaming at that. We already have, if you look, because there's a thing you can go to online that shows all of the fees that students pay towards their tuition. Some of them are going through intramurals, right? Some of them are going to the Ragin' Jazz and the cheerleaders. So I just think this would give us the ability to, again, be better competitive and put ourselves in a better competitive advantage with our peers, not only in the Sun Belt, but in other conferences. Because when conferences take a look at if there's another some realignment down the line, and an AAC is looking for a Louisiana school and maybe Tulane's in another conference, they leave and they're looking for another Louisiana school. We want to be in the position where we are competitive with other schools that are our peers. And I think that is one big thing that we lack right now in the state of Louisiana. And I think that just, again, it's an unfair advantage to all of the schools except for the almighty flagship that wrote this law, basically, because they don't want the competition. And now it's not about competing with them. It's just about keeping up with our peers.
Survival at this point. And I know, like, for example, so UNO voted, or they had a vote for the student vote to see if they wanted to add football. It got shot down 60-40 or 70-30. Nobody wanted it. Same thing with Louisiana Tech. They wanted to do a student athletic fee. They voted it down. Same thing with ULM. Like you said, Nick, because of tuition costs in the situation with the economy we live in today, nobody's going to want to increase tuition. Now, UL in 2011, when I was a senior, we had I think it was a student vote for athletic facilities, I believe, or something like that. And we voted yes. Believe it or not, it was much needed. Of course, I was biased and I was trying to sort of campaign for people to vote yes. All my friends, hey, don't forget to vote yes. But you look at JMU. I want to say, and I don't have it in front of me, correct me if I'm wrong, I want to say like they fund probably 35 to 40 million in student fees. That's our entire budget.
Yeah.
And then you add 20 million to it. They got a $60 million budget. 75% of it is student fees. I mean, the only way you can really increase that in Louisiana based on the way the laws are written is you got to increase the student attendance and student enrollment. Well, if we're not increasing in student enrollment, then you're really not increasing your budget. And that's kind of one of the things I think I'm hoping they will do in a couple of years, because we do have some room for growth. We could get the enrollment up to about 20 or 21,000. Those extra couple thousand students, some of that money can actually go to athletics based on the cost of attendance. Now, if that works out based on, I don't know if it's auxiliaries or what, but that's really the only other solution to this problem. I mean, if you're not, students aren't going to vote yes for an athletic fee right now. I mean, that's
what I was going to say. And one, we did increase attendance. I think enrollment. I think we're over 19,000. I mean, that's up from 17, if I'm not mistaken, right? Total. Yeah.
Oh, this freshman class is huge. Oh yeah, it's massive.
Yeah. So, but I'm not on here advocating for students to pay more money. I'm not to screw them. What I'm advocating for is the fact that a student is going to see athletes in their classes getting override cards to be able to, they get all the advantages, and then you put NIL on top of that, and they're like, screw you. Like, I'm not giving money to athletics. They don't understand the fact that it's not just going to the student athlete, it's going to facilities. Like you said, it's going to a ton of different things. So when you put something like that in a poor state, honestly, with students that are struggling to make ends meet, it's really tough to sell them on that. Now, if you give the power to the school, I think the school has some ways to say, okay, maybe we lower some things by $5 or $10, and then we increase that we move that to athletics. You can be a little more creative and not necessarily affect the student into having to pay more, but you really are limited by what you can do by the state law that says you absolutely cannot do it. So again, it's archaic, it's dumb, it's just to be anti-competitive with the flagship. And we need to start having some more forward thinking in this state when it comes to stuff like this, because you don't want to see, I mean, as much as I hate Louisiana Tech, I don't want to see Louisiana Tech die as an athletic department.
They're struggling.
I don't want to see any school in the state die as an athletic department, but we got to make it easier for these people to do business when, again, we're struggling to keep up with our peers in other states.
Well, maybe we can use that energy to go to the legislature and talk about these topics instead of having a debate of whether or not we should have a live tiger before the TSAB
Or
games.
have Hurricane Chris up there,
Yeah,
rapping on
I'm
the
sorry,
floor
and
of the
and I know this is for another day, and I don't want to get political, but when I saw that, like, we're wasting energy on talking about whether or not to have a live tiger at a football game.
Jerry,
Like,
even
come on,
their
man.
fans are like, what are you doing, dude? Nobody
Anyway.
asked for it, honestly, but anyway.
And look, we're apolitical, but that topic, it's like, guys, come on, let's priorities. Hello,
We're going to call
priorities.
stupid when they're stupid, and that's
Priorities.
dumb.
Anyway, moving on. Let's talk about what's going on this upcoming weekend in the Sun Belt. Of course, as we know, Texas State went over to Troy. That game is officially a final score. Texas State victorious, back in the winning column against the Troy Trojans. Texas State 38, Troy 17. Troy now drops to 1-5 on the year. Yeah, that's not looking good for the Trojans. Big time rebuild. App State looks like they're back on schedule. They will be taking on Marshall down in Huntington, West Virginia. I know App State has a lot on their minds right now. And again, we're hoping for the best down in Boone in the recovery efforts. But I know they got a lot more to play for this weekend rather than just a football game. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Again, App State will take on Marshall in Huntington, kickoff at 2:30, game on ESPN Plus. And like I mentioned earlier, and Brian Vincent mentioned, trying to get the whole city of Monroe over to Malone Stadium because they have a huge showdown. The 3-1 Warhawks will host the 4-0 JMU Dukes, and down in Malone Stadium, down in Monroe. Kickoff will be at 6:00. You can watch that game on ESPNU. Old Dominion.
By the way, before you go to the next one, I just want to say
ahead.
I'm going to be the biggest ULM fan this weekend because I know we're going to talk about realignment and all that stuff. But JMU fans, from the moment they got here, were talking about how they belong somewhere else. I would love nothing more than to have ULM beat James Madison because they think, one, they think they're too good for the Sun Belt. And number two, they think they're going to take all of the East teams and just break away from the Sun Belt, which won't happen. But anyway, look, I'm pulling for you, ULM. Please get a win this weekend.
Yeah, Old Dominion will travel up to Conway, South Carolina, to take on Coastal. Old Dominion and Coastal Carolina will kick off at 6:00. Game on ESPN Plus. South Alabama looks to get back on track. They will travel to Jonesboro to take on Arkansas State. The Jaguars and the Red Wolves will kick off at 6:00 on ESPN Plus. Of course, Louisiana travels to Southern Miss to take on the Golden Eagles in Hattiesburg. Kickoff at 6:00. Game on ESPN Plus, and also a bonus. Terrell, you're going to love this being a former band member. Louisiana will be bringing the Pride of Acadiana to Hattiesburg. So be listening for the fight song every time we score on TV. Hopefully there's a sea of red in Hattiesburg this weekend. Again, tonight, the final score, Texas State victorious over Troy by the score of 38-17.
Yeah, hopefully we hear the fight song like 20 times on Saturday.
Yeah, when you hear it more than 10 times, you know it's a good thing. So no, that's always fun. I love it when our band travels. That's always a blast. It's really cool because it kind of gives you this unspoken kind of this, not a home field advantage because you're on the road, but it definitely makes your presence known. I remember I went to A&M in 17 when we traveled, and I remember one that stood out was 2018, Billy Napier's first season. We played ULM in the last regular season game on the road, and we had to win that game to win the Western Division. And that was whenever I was, I believe it was the first time, if I'm not mistaken, that they were divisions, or was it? I don't know if it was. Yeah, it was, because it was the first year we had the Sun Belt Championship game, and I remember ULM missed a field goal, and we won that game and put us in our first ever conference championship game against App State. But that was so cool because we actually brought a ton of fans there, and it's always a bonus whenever we bring our band. Terrell, did you go to that game?
Oh yeah, I was at that
2018?
game. I was screaming.
Yeah,
we were going insane. We were taunting the whole time, talking about how they have green gumbo up in Monroe. Just oh yeah, no, we make it fun.
Do they even have gumbo up in Monroe? I don't think they have.
I'm sure
it.
if they do, it's green.
It's that
It's
fake
probably
gumbo.
seafood soup, you dummy.
Seafood soup, just for you, Nick. Anyway, moving on. So that's your Sun Belt schedule. Moving on, I wanted to talk real quickly about conference realignment, kind of give some updates because it did have a little bit to do with the Sun Belt Conference this week. Of course, Texas State, there were rumors that the Bobcat were in discussions with the Pac-12 and the Mountain West and the AAC, and they actually carried out a bluff with the Mountain West and made it public that they got offered by the Mountain West Conference. And after long talks and decision making by their administration, they came out with a statement the other night that they will be staying put in the Sun Belt Conference. But that does not negate the fact that you have UTEP from Conference USA officially going to the Mountain West. I know last week we talked about Utah State going to the Pac-12, and Gonzaga adding some basketball lure, leaving the West Coast Conference for the Pac-12, kind of adding some value to basketball in the Pac-12, trying to rebuild that, which is actually going to be a really good conference for basketball if you look at some of the teams they've added. But it had a lot to do with us because we were kind of in debate and talks with other schools of who do we add? What's the situation if we decide to if Texas State were to decide to leave? Do we go with Western Kentucky? Do we go with Louisiana Tech? Do we go the FCS route? And basically what ended up happening as a whole, Texas State staying put in the Sun Belt. I don't know what Conference USA is going to do. They will be at 11 members after UTEP leaves, but they are actually adding Missouri State and Delaware starting next year. So they will have enough members. And the Mountain West, I believe, I don't know if they're at 8 members yet or not, but they definitely will be. I'm not sure if they're looking to expand, but they do have options. The Pac-12 has 8 members, but they only have 7 full members with football. So I don't know who they're going to add, but I do know, Nick, the other night came out with a statement basically saying, hey, we're going to sit back and talk about it and give it some time before we decide to add the 8th full member to our conference. So look, this isn't over. There's still a lot to kind of dive into, but I think as of right now, things will kind of settle down for a few weeks before the Pac-12 makes their decision.
Yeah, I think Sacramento State had raised a whole lot of NIL money. Was that the school? Yeah,
$35 million.
Allegedly.
That's impressive, allegedly, man. And look, they also came out with a rendering of a 25,000 seat stadium. I mean, it seems like it just kind of came out of nowhere, and we're like, damn, they're not playing around. Also, right. Another school out of the FCS that the Mountain West is in heavy talks with is Tarleton State.
I was about to joke about that. What is that all about?
It's probably the Texas money. I mean, look, they just joined Division I like a year ago. They were actually in the transitional mode for the last few
ridiculous,
years.
Jared.
And now they're about to go to the Mountain West.
But this is so unnecessary. This is all about egos and markets that aren't there. I mean, you look at Southern Miss. Southern Miss, for all intents and purposes, should be at least in the AAC. Before the AAC was basically Conference USA 2, but they got left out of the Big East because they didn't have a big market. But that's ridiculous because they have solid programs, which is what the Sun Belt Conference has gone after, and we're reaping the benefits of that. Now, I think if the Pac-12, Pac-2, Pac-6, Tupac, whatever you want to call them, goes after Tulane and Memphis again with a better offer and they accept it, I think if I were the commissioner of the Sun Belt Conference, I would, unfortunately, I'll bite my tongue, but I think I would go after ECU and Louisiana Tech and really just put the death blow into Conference USA, because I don't think they can recover from losing 4 teams. I don't think that can happen. So I think if you see the AAC lose a couple of teams, I think the AAC will pick up a couple teams. And from Conference USA, and then I think I don't know. I'm thinking we put the death nail in that conference, but we'll see how things play out.
And they're almost kind of there, because if you look at their membership or their teams now over the last couple of years, I mean, look, Sam Houston, Kennesaw State, Jacksonville State.
It's a raggedy ass conference, man. It's a bunch of people and for programs that were kind of left out, right? The outcast, and then you try to add teams to it. Again, you have no natural rivals in that entire conference. You don't have any historical rivals in that entire conference. Do I feel bad for Louisiana Tech? No, they built their own bed and let them lay in it. But in the end, I think if the Sun Belt has the opportunity after all of this shakes through to put the death nail into Conference USA, I think we take that chance. Because we do make ourselves better if we do pick up an East Carolina or a Western or whoever we pick up. I think if you pick up a couple of solid schools, it only makes us better.
No question. And I think also too, like UTEP going to the Mountain West, it makes sense Because if you look at the schools that they're going to associate themselves with, now they don't have to travel to Miami to play FIU. Now they can go play New Mexico, which is right down the road. Now they can go to Vegas and play UNLV. Now they can go play Air Force. Now they can go play teams that are in their geographical area. I mean, they're a lot closer now to those members of the Mountain West than they would going all the way to Georgia to play Kennesaw State or going all the way to Florida to play FIU. I mean, that to me, that UTEP moving to the Mountain West was a no-brainer. I was kind of surprised they waited this long to do it. I thought the Mountain West would take a chance and add them years ago, but I mean, I don't even know if Conference USA feels like they're losing somebody there. Now, granted, it puts New Mexico State on an island. It's kind of interesting to see what New Mexico State's going to do, but I mean, that made sense to me. That move made sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you can thank Greg Sankey, that jackwagon, which he made some comments today that was blown up by literally everyone, basically saying that college football only matters to the SEC and nobody else. College football shouldn't exist outside of his teams in his conference. I'm not going to say what he can do, but
that's a stupid
I'm thinking
thing
it
to
right
say.
now. Well,
that
he's
is
an
a
idiot.
stupid
And I'm
thing to
so
say.
tired of this elite mindset of schools that are in the same division, and we all play FBS football, and that kind of thinking is why we are where we are, and it's stupid and detrimental to the sport that we all loved, and he's ruining it. And of course the SEC people are cheering him on because they can't get out of their own you-know-whats to understand he's ruining the sport. And all these things are ruining the sport, but let's protect our team because, I can't wait to see a 6-6, Vandy team lose to, who did Vandy lose to? Oh yeah, a Sunbelt team a couple weeks ago. Yeah, but they're so elite. We can't play them, but yet they lose to us on a regular basis. Texas A&M, Vandy. I mean, we can go down the line. Troy beat freaking LSU a few years ago, but we're not going to talk about that. We're too elite to be on the same field as them, but we still beat them.
Well, I think at this point, what's going to happen, and you actually see it with their talks of wanting to find a way to add 4 teams of the SEC and the Big Ten to the college football
break
playoff.
off. Take the SEC, take the Big Ten, go do whatever you want to do, and leave us all the hell alone. Because
I'm at that point.
I hate the idea of those two conferences. Go do your own thing and leave us alone. Because you know what? I don't even watch your games. I don't care. I don't care if Oklahoma plays Texas. I really don't. I have no desire to watch that game. I'm sorry. Maybe you think I'm an idiot. Maybe a lot of college fans do. And trust me, the viewership tells me I'm the odd man out, but I don't care. Go do your own thing and leave college football. Keep your professional football, because guess what? 90% of those guys, after they're out of college, guess what they're going to do? They're going to go sell insurance on the street.
And also too, I mean, we talk about March Madness and how they want to make that elite as well and keep certain teams out. And I'm like, guys, the point of brackets,
because they want to keep the money.
People fill out brackets for the upset of the small schools. That's what the term Cinderella, that's where it comes from. It doesn't come from Florida State and Duke. It comes from the George Masons and at one time the Gonzagas, before Gonzaga grew into the basketball powerhouse that they have. But people like it when the Loyola Chicagos go to the Final Four. People like it when Butlers go to the championship games. That's the whole point of those smaller schools. That's the fun of it. That's the fun of March Madness. Well, that's why people watch.
3 million people tuned in to the end of our game against Tennessee because we made a game out of it. 3 million people watching us play Tennessee. But they don't care about that. Those in control, those in power, they hate to see the Cinderella story. They don't want to see that. They want to see Kansas State play Oklahoma. They want to, they want to see a very small subset of teams play each other because it benefits them and puts money in their pocket. They don't want to see any other small team make its way through the bracket. Of course not, Jerry, because they might lose $100,000 out of their $500 million budget. How awful would that be?
That's why I was so happy when Rhode Island a few years back, Oklahoma got in, I think as a 7 or 10 seed or something like that into the dance, and they did not deserve to get in. And Rhode Island had a great year that year, and they eliminated Oklahoma. They beat them, and that's a prime example of why I was so happy that Rhode Island won, because it's like you're giving these these teams that aren't like they're not worthy of a postseason bid, and you're giving it to them based on brand, and they're not good enough. And then you see them lose in the first round, and what do we say? Well, I told you so. But not only did you add them, you took away an opportunity from another school who maybe might not have had a bigger brand, but was more deserving of making the postseason than that team. And so I think that's another thing too. And you know, like you said, Nick, I'm at the point where I think that's where college football is going anyway. Look, if the Big Ten and the SEC want to create their own little super semi-pro league, at this point, create it, and we'll do our own league, and we'll play for our own championship. I mean, I'm at that point, because if they've monopolized, or they're trying to monopolize college football, and they don't understand they're doing it at the expense of a lot of P4 schools that aren't self-sufficient. There's only like 20 schools that are self-sufficient.
Exactly.
That's what people don't understand. There's like 65 P4 schools. You're leaving out over 40 to 45 schools in your own conferences.
You think they're going to keep Mississippi State around for this new conference? You think they're going to keep Vandy around? Mizzou? No. And that's, I mean, look, you saw it with the Pac-12. Washington State and Oregon State were the first two schools that we saw basically get left on the curb, saying, you know what? Y'all don't have the resources. Bye. We're leaving. Good luck. And now they're pretty much in a glorified G5 league with the Mountain West. Basically, it's the new Mountain West that the Pac-12 is creating. So again, it's already started, but I'm at the point now, like a couple of years ago, I was like, man, don't do it. But they're doing it anyway. I'm like, you know what? Screw this. We'll do our own thing. It's gotten to be ridiculous. They're making an NBA G League out of these big time conferences, and it's not, the amateurism's gone. And you know what's going to end up happening? Yes, they have good viewership right now, but people are going to get tired of that, because guess what? Now you're going to start implementing NIL into your ticket costs, into your donations. You're already seeing it.
You're seeing it now. And guess what? You're going to have a star player that, like what happened with the UNLV quarterback, 3 games in, they're asking you to pay all this money just to have a ticket. He's going to leave. You're going to leave. And then what are you going to do? How do you think those fans are going to feel after that?
Those teams that pad their records at 10-2 are now going to go 5-7, 6-6 right. every year. Because then, even when you narrow it down to 20, 25, 30 programs, you only got about 10 that consistently will have a winning record. And now when you take out playing teams that they should beat, you're only going to have 1 or 2 out of the 30 that'll have that record. So have fun with that, bro. Good luck charging all this money for tickets. You're going to be charging NFL prices to see a college product. And by the way, your team's also 5-7.
Right.
Who's going to show up for that?
Exactly. I mean, they're dealing with attendance issues right now with some of these big schools, unless they're big games. I mean, that, you know, ESPN Plus has put a dent in some of those ticket sales. That's why you see some of these bigger stadiums, just like we're doing at Cajun Field. You're seeing these bigger stadiums take out seats to put party decks and put in certain amenities that don't include bleachers and lowering stadium capacity because they can't fill them for that reason.
Yep.
But anyway, before we move on, Terrell, I got a question for you. So right now there was a big debate this week with the talks of Texas State leaving the Sun Belt Conference, of who would you add? The talk was adding either Western Kentucky or Louisiana Tech. Nick, you mentioned putting Conference USA to sleep with the addition of Louisiana Tech and East Carolina out of the American. But you know, it's interesting because, you know, there was a tweet out last week saying that, you know, that Louisiana of all schools would vote Tech in, which I'm pretty sure they would. I would even think ULM would vote them in because all 3 schools are part of the UL system.
We have to, Jerry. I don't think we can.
We do.
We have to.
Well, we do. But Terrell, I wanted to ask you, man, like if you had an option between Louisiana Tech and Western Kentucky, right? Louisiana Tech, we know they'll fill up the stadium here. We'll fill their stadium and we'll fill their arena and whatnot by the 2 schools playing. UL Monroe and Louisiana Tech would bring in crowds. But at the same time, it's like our fans feel like, yes, that's true. And financially it would be logical, but I don't know if we want to deal with their fans and put up with their nonsense. Kind of like we talked about JMU fans being kind of arrogant about wanting to split and them setting all the boundaries and rules and their new members. I feel like with Louisiana Tech fans, they would somehow resurrect their arrogance and they would be 10 times worse. But with Western Kentucky, they left the conference basically by lying to us with Middle Tennessee in 2012. They told us, oh, we're not leaving, and then they left. So in your opinion, would you rather Louisiana Tech, where we'll draw crowds, but we got to deal with their fans, or Western Kentucky, who we're a little more unfamiliar with, but also has some good quality of sports in the Conference USA right now?
I think it goes a little bit deeper than that because I think it's the same reason the MAC didn't add Western Kentucky last year. I think Western Kentucky and Middle Tennessee are a pair. You either have both of them or you don't have any of them at all. And it's like you said with Tech. I hate Tech's guts. Oh, have for a long time. But you look at whenever we play them out of conference in basketball, our student section is packed. You know, in a midweek baseball game, our stadium's full. So I think it'd be great to have that rivalry and to have it be more consistent. But I mean, honestly, why not both? You know, I think having both would be a really great addition, especially basketball wise. You know, the Sun Belt is as a whole is very lacking in basketball besides maybe JMU. We were talking about killing Conference USA. Just put the nail in the coffin and just invite all of them, you know?
Okay, that's a good point. It's a valid point. And Nick, I know you want to reiterate it, but you would say just put them out of their misery and just invite Tech. Would you consider Western Kentucky?
Well, I think you have to do one or the other. And my idea was putting the nail in the coffin. I don't think you're going to get, because you got the East that wants an Eastern team. You got the West that wants a Western team. Western Kentucky kind of falls in the middle.
Both,
I think.
yeah.
So I think ideally you want to go, and again, East Carolina's AAC, but I think you find a way. I mean, I don't think they'd be opposed to doing Western and Louisiana Tech. I don't think I would hate that. But I think in the case where Conference USA again gets rated, I think you take two teams and you call it a day and let Delaware play Sam Houston independently, because there's not going to be a conference after that. Because I really do think, I mean, again, they could still lose to New Mexico State. AAC could lose Tulane and Memphis.
Yeah.
And then if we take let's say we take Louisiana Tech and East Carolina, AAC is going to try to backfill. They're not going to backfill with the Sun Belt, so they'll have to backfill with CUSA. And that's why I was saying that's a nail in the coffin if you take those two schools. So I don't know. I'd love to have both. Actually, I'd love to have Western because I hate Tech. But if I had to, if there was a deal where we take both, I guess I could be okay with it. I just don't think Western would come without, like you said, Middle, which is so weird because it's a detriment to your own school if you leave. You know, you won't leave because of that. That seems silly to me. But hey, I don't know what kind of.
I think that happened with them in the MAC. I think one of them, the MAC didn't want, and they were like, we can't leave without the other, and they just decided to stay in Conference USA.
Well, that's working out well for them.
So
games against games against FAU and UTEP were great, right?
I can't help but laugh, and I'm going to pick on Louisiana Tech for a second because 4 or 5 years ago, or even 10 years ago, you go on their message boards, and I mean, they called us the Sun Belch. They made fun of the conference.
Oh,
I mean,
you can't spell elite without Louisiana Tech.
Yeah. And I remember in 2012 when they went to, I don't know if it was a state senator or a state rep, when they went to Conference USA or a big booster for Tech, they went in the Shreveport Times or the Shreveport newspaper and said, now we've officially created separation from the other Sunbelt schools.
Oh yeah. They love separation. And
separation.
You know what else they did when we played them there last time? By the way, again, this is a Louisiana, a University of Louisiana system school. We go to play them. I think HUD's maybe last year. We played them up in
it was 2015.
Ruston. And the PA guy got on there and said, Louisiana Tech University, the crown jewel of the Louisiana system. In what universe?
Certainly not advancing to songs.
I mean, come on, man. So yeah, no, I mean, I think they've been humbled right? And the question is, have they been humbled enough for our liking? Because we have all the power now. Have they been humbled enough? I mean, to Jay's point, none of the administrators that made the comments they made, none of the people that push things like we're the crown jewel, none of those people are there anymore. We don't need 3 Louisiana teams. That's my whole thing. I hate that idea.
They're not there anymore, but I have a feeling like the aura of their
they get there real quick.
Oh, yeah. And it could come back. Like that doesn't mean it won't come back. I mean, it's like it would be like if you found somebody homeless walking the street during Thanksgiving, right? And you invited them for turkey, and the first thing they did when they came over and say, while you're giving them something to eat for Thanksgiving, the first thing they do is complain about the turkey. That's Louisiana Tech. Like, right now they feel, even though they're in Conference USA, it's like they're homeless. But then if you invite them back, they'll be the first school to complain about stuff and say, well, this is not our standards and all this stuff. And I just don't want to hear it,
They're like James Madison of the West. That's what they would be like.
Except at least JMU. But at least the JMU's credit, at least they win and they got money.
They win in football. They're not great in anything else.
But I mean, it's more than what Tech can say right now. Tech's poor and they lose. So it's like,
there you go.
It's a double whammy. But I wanted to play this clip real quick. And Nick, I know I showed it to you yesterday. It's about a minute long. I was listening to one of their podcasts. It's called Bleed Tech Blue. And look, they're passionate fans. They haven't quit on the team. I'll give them credit for their fanhood. But the perception of them now, just a few years ago, they talked about how they want to be big time and we're separation and all this stuff. Well, now reality's really kicked in whenever they were refused an invite to the AAC, whenever the Sun Belt basically kind of sniffed at them, and laughed at them. And so I wanted to play this clip real quick because they were talking about conference realignment, and it just goes to show you where they are now with all of these different FCS teams being called up from Conference USA. And they went from wanting to be big time to now playing Kennesaw State and Sam Houston for conference games. So let me play this clip real quick. I'm gonna play it on my phone, but hopefully I'm sure you can hear it. Just give me 1 second. Let's see it. Here we go.
This is terrible.
There's benefits to the Sun Belt. I know a lot of the conversation too is once you're in the Sun Belt, you're not getting out. Guys,
here's the deal. If you're against the Sun Belt right now, you're just wrong.
Well, and here's the reason
You're wrong.
Here's why I'm not. I don't want to be in Conference USA when UTEP gets the invite to the Mountain West, when New Mexico State becomes the 10th choice of the Mountain West and they get to it, and then Judy is sipping on some red wine one night. It's like, you know what? I'm inviting McNeese and SFA. I don't want to play conference games with McNeese and SFA. I'm not looking for an epic Conference USA road game down in Lake Charles against the Cowboys. Like, you don't know what McNeese wears on their jerseys? The back of them say Cowboys. They don't even put their names on them. It's 2024. They can't even give a kid his jersey on senior day. I don't want to be there. I don't want to be there.
So we've gone from we're elite and we're creating separation to now I don't want to invite McNeese to our conference because I don't want an epic showdown in Lake Charles because we're going to be playing teams that have the name Cowboys on the back of their jerseys. It's just the reality.
The conference, I mean, it's basically a glorified FCS conference.
It really is, yeah.
I mean, all the teams they've called, at least the teams we've called up from the FCS, App State, Georgia Southern, JMU, they're quality programs.
Yeah.
I mean, the programs that Conference USA is calling up are maybe had one flash in the pan season and then nothing else afterwards.
But it's just hilarious seeing the fact that like the Tech fans are facing harsh reality from talking about being elite to now saying, I hope they don't invite McNeese because I don't want an epic showdown in Lake Charles. Like, it's just, again, 10 years ago, it's crazy how they were high and mighty and talking down to us. Now they're saying, I hope Judy doesn't drink too much red wine to invite Stephen F. Austin to have to play us. It's just, oh gosh, it's such great karma.
I want to answer this comment. It can't say JMU is only good at football. They swept us in baseball and ended our winning streak at the Dome. What I mean by that comment is, in their minds, they're the God's gift to everything. And if that's the case, then they should be champions at everything, which they're not even close. So yes, they have had our number several times over the last couple of seasons. I give them credit for that, but their cockiness reminds me a lot of Louisiana Tech, where they came here and thought that they were too good for the conference because they had a couple of good football seasons. Still playing good football. I will cheer for them against non-conference opponents, but I think at some point a reality check's going to come back to JMU fans at some point. Hopefully,
how about you just be thankful we invited you? How about you just be thankful that
FCS,
because
bro.
because of us, you're not an FCS member in the Colonial Conference.
Or
how about
even
you
worse, in Conference USA.
Yeah, how about you just be thankful that we invited you? Like, instead of coming in and talking down to us, like, because of the Sun Belt Conference, you now have the chance to compete nationally in sports. Because of the Sun Belt Conference, you have a chance to create more revenue to your athletic departments, playing better quality teams and whatnot. So instead of complaining about the Sun Belt and saying we want to get out and we want the East to split and all this other goofy foolishness that you're spewing, just shut up and enjoy the ride. And look, if you win enough one day, maybe you will get that special invite to another conference. But for right now, we don't want to hear it.
Well,
we don't want to hear it.
In addition to that, you have a couple of Texas State people that are eating crow right now because they were so sure they were too good for the Sun Belt and they were going to the Pac-12.
That's another thing.
Mountain West and
you've had one good season in football in 10 years since you've joined FBS.
And
you've
still hasn't won a championship, by the way.
And you've yet to win a championship. You win 8-5. Your best year is an 8-5 record, okay? And yet you're talking to us like you're talking to us as if you're the next coming of the Texas Longhorns.
And called us little bro, by the way, after they haven't beat us in football ever.
That was a total troll job. I know they were doing that to mess with us. There's no way they could be serious. But come on.
The whole point of that is, our fans thankfully have been very good conference mates. And if our name has been thrown out there a couple of times for different conferences, I don't think anybody's gloated about it out there and saying, haha, this place sucks. We're going to move. That's literally what Texas State fans, a few of them have been doing this last couple of weeks. And be a good conference mate, man. Just be humble, and you can hope for the best and hope that you do things. But when you make that public, you just make it ugly. And by the way, now a lot of fans are going to be cheering against you the rest of the season and laughing at you when you lose.
Well, first of all, if you want out this conference, learn how to actually win in this conference for once before actually wanting to leave.
And that too, yeah.
You can't even win anything in this conference. Like, you're talking down to a conference that you lose in, and then on top of that, I look at it from a standpoint of, with us, like, what would UL do? Well, look, the only conference I would even sniff right now or even be interested in would be if the Pac-12 called us, and it better be a damn good deal to leave. Like, the TV contract better be really, really good for us to say, you know what, we're willing to travel to Fresno, California.
And even that, I don't know, man.
Well, that's my point. So this idea that they're so antsy and anxious to leave, it's like, what is the selling point for you to want to go right now? I mean, you go to the Pac-12. What's the benefit? I mean, how much more money are they going to pay you with the TV contracts, Nick? They don't even have a price yet. They're just kind of finding members. They don't know what the price is going to be.
They complain about being on an island, but we're literally closer to them than UTEP.
Yeah. Right.
So that whole island thing, you're still on an island. You're just on a different island.
You're just on an island moving west than east. And I understand if they don't want to go all the way to Virginia, but it's not that different than going to California.
But have fun playing at 9:00 at night. Have fun at the 9:30 p.m. games that you're going to play on Saturdays. That's not fun to me. I have no interest in that.
And what they don't understand is the reason why the Pac-12 dissolved in the first place is because nobody watches them. That's why they dissolved. That's why the USC and UCLA are going to play Rutgers and Penn State across the country because they know they get more viewers.
Stanford-Syracuse game, I really tuned in for that. Sorry, Dave, but who cares?
Well, and that's the thing, but that goes to show you that's what Texas State is basically going to, a conference that everybody else deserted because nobody watches them. Nobody watches them. And so if you want to go and you come up with it, let's say they come out with a new TV contract and they pay him $7-8 million. How much of that cost is going to eat into travel expenses?
A lot.
I mean, so you might get maybe 6 or 7 million, but in the grand scheme of things, is it worth leaving rivalries and attractive matchups in the Sun Belt to go play San Diego State and Fresno?
And I know we're beating the
I mean-
dead horse. I mean, we've been talking about this for 30 minutes, but the last thing I'm going to say about it is people have egos and get too caught up in a brand.
The name.
Pac-12, right.
Right.
The Pac-12 is not an elite conference anymore. I'm sorry. But if you get caught up in, ooh, I'm in the Pac-12, well, congratulations, but you're going to be playing G5 schools.
Well, that's what it is. It's the Mountain
that's
West,
all it is.
glorified Mountain West. And look,
Correct.
I'll give credit to the Big 12. The Big 12 came close to basically dissolving when they lost Texas and Oklahoma. But what did they do? They went into the Pac-12 and they added Colorado, Arizona State, Utah. They added some good teams and they survived. Pac-12 is going after the Mountain West. They're not going after any other P5 schools. I mean, it's a glorified Mountain West.
But want to
conference.
call themselves P5 now.
Yeah. What do you
Not
think?
gonna
Because
happen.
you think
It's not
because
how it
Utah
works.
State, you think because Utah State went over there now that there's some big school? Give me a break. They were a Sun Belt member in football only, not even maybe 15, 20 years ago. So now give me a break. But anyway, that's enough for conference realignment talk. And I'm sure we'll talk more about it as time goes on. Moving on, Raging Cajun soccer coach Chris McBride and the ladies currently sit at a 5-2-6 overall record. And let's see, they have a 0-1-2 conference record. They actually had a tie the other night against ULM on Sunday. The score was 2-2.
I think that's called a draw, isn't
A
it?
draw. Oh, yeah, it's a draw.
Gotta get the kits,
Gotta
draw.
get the
Nil.
soccer term.
Yeah, you got to get
Pinch.
that right.
Yeah, they just have to have their own words for everything.
Brilliant shot. Anyway, Sunday, the Cajuns will return in action against Troy at home. Kickoff will be at 1:00 at Home Bank Soccer and Track Complex. And that'll be their one game for the week. They had a bye or an off night tonight. And of course, we got to go over to volleyball. Coach Christy Gray and the ladies had a double header again, or 2-game series against Texas State over the weekend. Unfortunately, they dropped both games. First game, they dropped 3-2. Second game, 3-0. Unfortunately for the volleyball team, they were supposed to travel to Boone, North Carolina to take on App State. Unfortunately, because of the effects of Hurricane Helene, those games are canceled, and I don't think they're going to be rescheduled. That was supposed to happen Friday, Saturday. So instead, they'll have a bye this weekend before hosting Southern Miss next Thursday and Friday at Earl K. Long. So they get a little bit of a break. Right now, they sit with a 4-9 record overall and 0-2 in conference play. One last thing before we go, guys, and I like to usually do this at the end. Give me your predictions, score predictions for our game on Saturday. I just want to remind you guys that I was the only one that picked the Cajuns to win last week against Wake. So I just want to say that. But anyway, what do you guys think? What are the Cajuns going to do? We're going to end that 11-game losing streak, Nick, on Saturday. Let's hear it.
I literally said it was reverse psychology. So
It worked.
Take that out of your mouth.
It worked.
No, my prediction is the Cajuns win big 42-10 this weekend over Southern Miss.
Terrell, what you got?
I got 38-13.
You know, I'm going to say, I actually think coming off a bye, I think Southern Miss is going to get up for us. I do think that they're going to give us a little bit of a game. I still think the Cajuns cover. It could be a blowout. It could be 35-10. It could be the scores that you guys predicted where they kind of score either in the low teens or whatnot. I actually think they're going to score a little bit more, and only because, again, they're going to get up for us. But I think they're not going to be able to stop us. I like the Cajuns 38-20. I like the Cajuns 38-20. Well, guys, I think that's going to do it for tonight. Man, 2 hours in, good conversations, great chat. Terrell, thank you so much for joining us, man. What was it? Was it a cool experience? What did you think about being an honorary co-host tonight?
Oh man, it's been a blast. I'm happy to do it, and hope we can do it. Yeah, hope we can do it again soon.
Well, don't be a stranger, guy, Terrell, and thank you so much. That was, of course, Mr. Terrell Lentini, aka the Cajun Tuba. You can look for him on X, formerly known as Twitter. He is a huge Cajuns fan and a big fan of the pod. It's great to have him. For our first official fan spotlight, look for those in the next couple of weeks. We'll be doing a few of those. And of course, Lane will be joining us as well. Lane will be back with us on Saturday hopefully he's with us back on Saturday following the Cajuns game against Southern Miss. Of course, guys, this final reminder, Louisiana Raging Cajuns travel to Hattiesburg to take on the Southern Miss Golden Eagles Saturday night kickoff at 6 o'clock at M.M. Roberts Stadium, also known as The Rock. Cajuns hopefully get that conference opening win and end that 11-game losing streak. You can watch the game on ESPN Plus, listen to the game on Hot 107.9, 103.3, as well as 1420 AM. Jay Walker, Cody Juneau, and Dawson Arslow will be on the air to cover the Cajuns game. That's going to do it for tonight. For Nick, for Lane, for Terrell, I'm Jerry Abear. As always, in the words of the late, great Big Dave Thibodeau, bye, we out of here. See you Saturday, post-game, following the Cajuns' hopeful victory against the Golden Eagles. See you Saturday night. And as always, go Cajuns.
We're going home. Time to take your drunken ass home. It's all right. If you don't know what to do with yourself, take your drunken ass home. Oh, yeah, we're going home. Yeah, we're going home. Yeah, we're going home. Time to take your drunken ass home. It's all right. If you don't know what to do.